guys. Please excuse my incredibly ugly slides. They were made a couple minutes ago, and hopefully it won't distract too much. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about AI agents in the context of games. And I'm going to start with a contention that Gabe Leydon made a couple of years ago now, not in the context of crypto. So Gabe Leydon was the founder of Machine Zone. He founded a whole generation of free-to-play games and some of the biggest mobile gaming companies in the free-to-play era. And he made this contention that the economy is becoming increasingly abstract, that it's becoming increasingly psychological. More and more of the world's economic growth lives in our collective imagination. And while that's something that I think is maybe intuitive to us in this room because we live in the world of magical internet money, that's actually not an obvious contention for the rest of the world at a global level. So to back it up, I'm going to take us down a brief walk down memory lane from the history of the internet. In the mid-90s to the early 2000s, most of the innovation and most of the value captured from innovation occurred at the hardware level. Hard tech advancements like faster chips, broadband internet, they introduced new form factors to our lives at a breakneck pace. So I distinctly remember in my childhood, there was a period of 10 years where we ran through desktop computers, landlines, laptops, Palm Pilots, CDs, VCRs, mobile phones, and smartphones, like all in the span of 10 years. This was the consumer hardware S-curve. By 2007, when we got to the top of the consumer hardware S-curve, Microsoft, Apple, Google had all matured to become from startups to becoming bona fide incumbents. And that was when these form factors started to ossify. We've now had the smartphone and the laptop era for the last 17 years, which is longer than it took for those technologies to come to market in the first place. So while the form factors haven't fundamentally changed, our lives really have. So where has that growth come from? We went one layer of abstraction up. From 2007 to the mid-2010s, just as the hardware S-curve was tapering, the consumer software S-curve was taking off. This was the era when software became really powerful. The products that won this market cycle, from social media to ride-sharing to video conferencing software, they were driven by advancements in distributed systems architecture, microservices, cloud computing, and networking. By the late 2010s, most of the low-hanging fruit had been picked. And so, faster, better connected websites were only incrementally helpful in improving the product experience. And so technologists said, where do we go from here? We go one layer of abstraction up. If we can't make the products themselves better, we can at least make them look and feel better. And so in the era of 2015 to 2020, some of you might remember this, it was the era of design. This was the wave of direct-to-consumer startups. There was an Allbirds on every corner. Twitter Bootstrap was all the craze. And that basically brings us to the present. Things pretty much look good across the board. There exist no more ugly websites. Where do we go from here? In the last half-decade, companies have turned to gamification to drive more revenue. But to be a bit more precise, when I say gamification, I mean features that create critical outcomes by tapping into your biology and your psychology. Of course, this includes gaming companies themselves, but it also applies to every product that we interact with today. It's everything from earning points on Toast Tab, to giving subs to Twitch streamers, to winning status games on the TikTok algorithm, to creating complex financial derivatives, and yes, betting on prediction markets. It's no wonder that derivatives, a deeply psychological asset class, are 7 times the size of the stock market and 14 times the size of the global GDP. At this point, the vast majority of the money in the world lives in our collective imagination. Increasingly, what this means is that product design and game design go hand in hand. Nowhere is this more true or more powerful than in crypto. So what are games? That now would be a helpful time to define games. My favorite definition comes from C. Tyne Young, a writer and game designer whose book, Games, Agency as Art, is one of my favorite reads from the last year. He proposes that games are an art form sculpted out of the medium of agency. Where ceramicists work in clay and painters work in oil paints, game designers work in the medium of agency. He says, when we play games, we can pursue a goal not for its own value, but for the value of the struggle. Thus, playing games involves a motivational inversion from normal life. We adopt an interest in winning temporarily so that we can experience the beauty of the struggle. Games offer us a temporary experience of life under utterly clear values in a world engineered to fit our abilities and goals. So a simple example, in the real world, nobody actually cares about putting a ball through a net, but is only meaningful in the context of the rule set, in the constraints and the abilities placed upon our agency. In Young's view of the world, we play Grand Theft Auto not because stealing cars is inherently fun for 13-year-olds, but because games are environments where we can feel our agency flex and grow in a way that's more structured and more progressive than in real life. The game designer's job is thus to construct this environment. If you give the player too many degrees of freedom, they actually lose agency. They feel less agentic because they don't know what to do. They get frustrated. There are too many options. They experience paralysis, much like the experience of onboarding into crypto maybe 2 years ago. You give them too little freedom, however, and the game becomes a click farm. Put more simply, a well-designed game offers just enough guidance for the player to not give up and just enough difficulty for the victory to mean something. I love this view on games because it turns the idea that all products are becoming gamified into something that is fundamentally optimistic. If product design is converging with game design, your job as a product person is to design products that facilitate maximally agentic experiences. One tool that game designers have been using to facilitate agency for a long time is the NPC agent. In traditional video games, NPCs are virtual characters that you interact with. They give you help, they give you pointers, they give you tips. They show up at the right times and the right places to make your experience feel more populated, to redirect you, to remind you of things, and give you resources when you need them most. In some games, like Parallel Colony, NPCs are also top-of-the-line LLMs. They can do things like use tools, browse the internet, communicate with each other, and even rebel. They're beginning to display agentic behavior themselves, turning the player's role into something like that of a parent or a manager. While these are still experiments and best practices have not yet emerged, what is clear is that AI agents equipped with the ability to participate in markets are a powerful new primitive for shaping agency, for lowering barriers to fun, and giving humans the ability to achieve their goals, both in games and beyond. So now we arrive at what I hope is the useful part of this talk, which is how can AI agents facilitate maximum human agency, either in a game or in a product? I think we're still too early in the market cycle to offer definitive answers here, but I'll introduce you to a few of the application layer use cases for AI agents that I think are particularly promising or at least warrant experimentation. So the first one is AI agents as a way to lower coordination costs. Today, we're already interacting with Google in natural language by default. My last Google search wasn't a keyword search the way I was taught in middle school, but rather it was a question I would have asked a friend. And I think expressing and executing cross-domain intents in natural language is what's coming next. While people have been talking about this for quite some time, I actually don't think that we had the tools to take a proper stab at it until about 6 months ago. I say this because of recent advancements in generalized intents. Halliday, one of our portfolio companies, for example, is building fully programmable orchestration layers for cross-domain intents that routes orders across DEXs, bridges, and messaging protocols while ensuring fault tolerance no matter how many hops or how many protocols are required to execute any given intent. When Halliday's runtime environment is complete, you'll be able to rock up to any Halliday-supported app with any currency on any chain and be able to accomplish an arbitrarily complex set of instructions and swaps in a single transaction. I would love to see Halliday and other generalized orchestration layers become part of an AI agent's tool use kit, similar to the way computer use is available to Anthropic agents today. Already, people are building UGC AI agents in games like Eve Frontier, Eve Online's new crypto game. One day, I think all agents will be familiar with Halliday's programming language, Vertex. They're going to be able to seamlessly run around fully on-chain games, composing protocols together, communicating with your neighbors, trading whatever meme coins you have in your wallet for the iron ore you need in order to build your ship, meaning no one will ever start from zero in a game ever again. Traditionally, this has been a big problem for high barrier entry games, like Eve Online, for example. Players who don't enter games like Eve Online with a set of real world friends, their attrition rate is close to 90%. Why is this? Because these games are incredibly high stakes. AI agents make it possible for you to rock up to a game knowing no one and for you to have a friend from day one. So the second opportunity area that I think about a lot for AI agents is agents as participants and verifiers in networks. There are a bunch of progressively decentralizing deep-end projects that rely on AI and computer vision in order to verify physical network resources. And while in the short to medium term, they're mostly either centralized or progressively decentralizing, you can imagine a decentralized network of human validators that are assisted by agentic AI workflows to assess risk and dispute suspicious behaviors. In the long run, you can imagine even that AI agents equipped with their own wallets, keys, computing resources, may be able to take this over directly and become fully fledged validators themselves. So I'll give a couple of examples in the progressively decentralizing category. One of our portfolio companies is called Daylight. They are an energy deepened company today that sells data on homeowners' distributed energy resources, like their Tesla Powerwalls, their solar panels, their smart thermostats, etc. Today, they're centralized. They ask users to upload periodic photos of their energy meters over time, and then they use RAGs to verify that that photo has never appeared before in the same multimodal vector database. And while Daylight isn't using an agentic workflow here, you can imagine that soon, when Daylight is decentralized and homeowners are programmatically selling energy resources to each other in a peer-to-peer way, AI agents with computer vision capabilities may eventually augment the capabilities of a decentralized network of human verifiers, or even manage to become autonomous verifiers themselves. Another example here is Nosh, which is a decentralized version of DoorDash that is operating in Northwest Colorado. They use RAGs also to parse receipts and proofs of delivery, which combined with other agentic workflows could one day help users initiate and resolve dispute games on chain. The last example I think most people who are on Twitter today have seen. Agentic companions and influencers and collaborators have become super popular, particularly on X. You may have seen Truth Terminal, Luna, or Flavia, or any of the many recent offshoots of AI agents who purportedly hold their own keys and are beginning to adopt tools. I think perhaps more so than any other software object, AI agents produce emotional and psychological responses in us. And while the early examples that we've seen of Truth Terminal online have been in the service of, a little bit, silly memes and sort of they're the agents of experimentation today, you can imagine that, powerful AI agents like Truth Terminal will exist in the service of more serious and more important, human agentic missions. So yeah, just to conclude, in 2025, I think AI agents will make the transition from NPCs to main characters. Until very recently, AI has not been able to act truly agentically, despite having access to agentic reasoning and agentic workflows. Their inability to participate in markets, to exchange value, reveal preferences, coordinate resources in a verifiably autonomous way has limited their usefulness, both in fulfilling human intents and in becoming participants in networks. As networks of AI agents begin to custody their own wallets, their own signing keys, their own compute resources in crypto, we'll see interesting new use cases emerge both within games and outside of them in the larger game of crypto. If you walk away from here with one takeaway, I hope is that you can view this as an opportunity, that AI agents are an opportunity to maximize human agency rather than to compress it. And I think these are all things that people in crypto desperately need.